Earlier this year, Google announced the end of the Chromecast line. I was conflicted about this because the Chromecast has been one of Google's longest lasting hardware projects and one of its most well liked. But the reason that Google got rid of the Chromecast is this. This is the Google TV streamer, and it replaces the Chromecast line. Now, Google is so confident that this is better than a Chromecast that it was willing to end the entire line for it. So the question then becomes, was that worth it? So people who are used to Chromecasts are used to them being tucked behind the television. That's not the case with the Google TV streamer. This thing is much bigger than a Chromecast and is specifically designed to be held outside of the back of the TV, specifically right in the middle of your TV console. So there are two reasons for this change. The first is fairly obvious, which is the Bluetooth connection between the remote and the streamer itself. If you had the streamer tucked behind your TV, the connection's not going to be as good as it would be if it was outside of the back of the TV. The second reason is because the Google TV streamer actually has a thread border router built inside of it. What this means is that if you have smart devices that need or could use a thread border router, it will come with the Google TV streamer. So, for example, if you have a light bulb that would require a hub from the company that made that light bulb, and you don't want to buy that hub, you don't have to. If it supports Thread and Matter, you can use this to connect to the light bulb directly, saving you from having to have a separate hub for that light bulb. So this makes it a really nifty starter product for those of you out there who haven't started a smart home yet. Of course, just because Google has designed this to be kept outside of the back of the TV doesn't mean you need to do that. If you don't care about the thread border router and don't care about Bluetooth connectivity between your remote and the streamer, then you can just tuck it behind the TV and everything will work just fine. Of course, there's no mounting system in this box, so you're gonna have to get clever about how you're going to keep it behind your TV, but that's up to you to decide. Once you've figured out the best place to keep the streamer, connecting it to your TV is really easy. Just use the included USB-C cable and wall adapter to give it power, and plug in an HDMI cable to connect it to your TV. There is no HDMI cable in the box though. And optionally, if you want super stable internet speeds, I highly recommend using an Ethernet cable to connect it to your internet. But there's no Ethernet cable in the box either, unfortunately. With everything connected, getting set up is going to be very familiar for anyone who's used a Google TV in the past. All you need to do is get the remote connected and then add your Google account and install some apps. Google walks you through the whole process and it's really straightforward and simple. You might be wondering if it's worth using an Ethernet cable instead of Wi-Fi with this. Take a look at these speed tests and you'll see that Ethernet is going to give you much faster speeds, not to mention much more stable connectivity to the internet, which could make a big difference for you folks out there who like to watch a lot of 4K content. If you can, I highly recommend using Ethernet, but if you don't want to use Ethernet or don't have the ability to, don't worry, there's plenty of Wi-Fi here. With all your apps installed and all that, you can use the remote to navigate around and find something that you want to watch. The remote is basically the same as the previous remotes for Google TV streamers, but it's been changed a little bit with some buttons. But overall, you've got the D-pad at the top and the OK button in the middle, so using that to navigate around is very straightforward. If you don't want to do that, you can use voice commands though. You can say things like open YouTube or play jazz music, and the TV will respond in kind. Also, you can use the Google Home app where there's a digital remote that's kind of funky to get used to because it uses this little dot joystick thing, but once you get used to it, it's actually pretty intuitive. Also, despite the fact that this is not a Chromecast, it still supports Google Cast. So if you're using an app on your phone and you want to throw content from your phone to the TV, that is still possible by hitting the Cast icon in the app that you're using. This works really well, just as well as any other Chromecast that I've used. So even though the Chromecast line is gone in name, it still survives in the Google TV streamer. If you have a relatively modern TV, it likely supports HDMI CEC, which allows all of your devices connected through HDMI to communicate with each other. This supports HDMI CEC, and so does my LG TV, as well as my Yamaha 5.1 receiver. So the Google streamer is able to connect to all of these and communicate with them, allowing the power button on the remote of the Google TV streamer to control all my devices. Also, the volume control automatically controls the Yamaha receiver. Everything just worked, and it's really great and super convenient. The Google TV streamer supports all the high-end features that you would expect from a streaming device in this price range, including a 4K resolution, HDR with Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, and more. It also has 32 gigabytes of storage, which is 4 times as much storage as the previous Chromecast with Google TV. There's also a new processor inside and twice as much RAM as the previous Chromecast, with 4 gigabytes on board. This makes it for a super snappy and smooth experience. Well, at least much smoother than we saw on the previous Chromecast. Google has included some new features here that you won't find on many other streamers, such as this button on the back, which is a Find My Remote button. You can just hold that for a little bit and your remote will start chirping so you can more easily locate it. You can also use voice commands for this, such as like this. Hey Google, find my remote.
Okay, locating the remote.
The remote also has a new customizable button in the same spot where you would have found the input switcher on the previous Google TV remote. This button can be customized in one of 3 ways. It can launch the new Google Home app, it can launch an app of your choice, or it can act as the input switcher button used to act. Despite that it can do these 3 things, Google really wants you to use the Google Home app for this. The Google Home app is now built into the Google TV streamer and allows you to turn off the lights, or check your cameras, or change the temperature in the house, all from the comfort of your TV. Google really wants you to use this customizable button to launch the new Google Home experience because that's one of the star features of the streamer. But I would advise against this for 3 reasons. Number 1, most people watching this don't even have a Google Home setup, so the button wouldn't even be relevant to you. Number 2, those of you who do have a Google Home setup probably are already using your smartphone or voice commands to do the same functions you would with this new app. And number 3, if you decide to use this to launch the Google Home experience, you're not going to be able to use it to switch your inputs. I don't know about you, but I switch my inputs a lot more than I would use this to turn my lights on and off. So having this program to be the input switcher is much more useful to me. When you're not actively watching anything, you can set the Google TV streamer to have a screensaver. You can connect it to your Google Photos library, which is pretty cool because it makes your TV basically into a giant smart frame. Or you can choose a bunch of canned photos that come from professional photographers. But the star feature here is new AI generated wallpapers. This works the same as Gemini Online. You issue a text prompt and then an image is generated to match that prompt. This is pretty cool, but the problem is that none of these screensavers actually move. So even if you have it set on your own Google Photos, there's no parallax or any kind of zoom in to give it motion and make it feel cinematic. It's just images on the screen. This is different from what we see on the Apple TV 4K, which adds in a little motion there, which makes it look a lot better in my opinion. I'm hoping that Google could update this so that we get some motion in these photos at some point in the future, but for now, it's just pictures on the screen no matter whether you choose your Google Photos or some AI generated art. This isn't the only place that Google has put AI on the Google TV streamer. There's also new summaries for certain types of content, which can give you AI generated text related to what that content is. So it'll tell you what the content is about, and it also gives you some critic reviews and what audiences are saying about it. This only works in English at the moment, and it only works with the top 2,000 titles across all the streaming services that the Google TV can access. For me, I didn't find this super useful as I get most of my recommendations for content from my friends and family, but it's nice to know that it's there if I need it. One last thing that's really cool is that this integrates really well with your Nest cameras. If you happen to have a Nest doorbell, it'll even show who's at the door when someone rings. This is a really cool feature. It interrupts what you're watching, which is kind of inconvenient, but at the same time, if someone's at the door and you don't want to get up off the couch, it's nice to know that you can just see it right there without having to move. Unfortunately, you can't interact with the person that's on the other end of the line. So you can't talk to them or even issue a canned voice response like you can do with your smartphone. Still, this could be something that Google brings later on down the road. Okay, so the Google TV streamer has a lot of cool features to it, and it's really nice looking. But the real question becomes, should people who are using an Apple TV 4K or an NVIDIA Shield move over to this? And I don't think so. I think that this is not going to be as good as an NVIDIA Shield or even an Apple TV 4K. But I don't think that's the consumer that Google is going after with this. I think Google is going after the people who are using a really old Amazon Fire TV stick, or even worse, the built-in operating system in their TV. Google is going for those customers who are ready to spend a little cash to get something really good and are upgrading from something not so great. I've seen a lot of people online saying, why would you buy this if you can buy an NVIDIA Shield? But remember, not everyone cares about what an NVIDIA Shield can do. Most people just want a streamer that can do the basics, is nice and quick, is reliable, and comes with a couple of features that make their lives better. And if that's all you're looking for, this is a terrific option. Also, it's very much worth keeping in mind that this is considerably cheaper than either the Apple TV 4K or an NVIDIA Shield. This is only $99, which is a pretty competitive price for all the features that you get with it. That makes it more in competition with something like a Roku Ultra, which I think this thing blows out of the water. Of course, the remote doesn't have a headphone jack on it like you find with Roku's, but that's a sacrifice that I'd be willing to make. What about those of you who are still using a Chromecast with Google TV, the one that launched in 2020? Should you bother spending $100 to upgrade to this? In my opinion, yeah, this is a worthwhile upgrade. You're going to get a better processor, more RAM, more storage, a brand new remote, and a bunch of other cool hardware features that you can't get on your current device. Sure, a lot of the software features that are coming to this are probably going to end up coming to the Chromecast with Google TV and other Google TV streamers in the future. But the hardware is definitely not, and I think that's worthwhile for an upgrade. There are some things that I wish were different about this though. I wish it had an additional USB-C port so I could hook up some external storage, or a microSD card slot so I could slot that in. I also wish that when someone rang the doorbell, I could communicate with that person. And to be honest, I also wish it came in black because pretty much everything else on my TV console is black. Despite these complaints, I do think this is the new gold standard for Android TV streamers out there. Yes, there are going to be people who are going to need the NVIDIA Shield, but most people don't. They just need something like this that's going to save them a little cash, deliver all the features that they need, and even give them a couple of extra features that you can't get anywhere else. Are you going to upgrade to the Google TV streamer? If so, what are you going to be getting rid of so that you can get this instead? Jump down in the comments and let me know, and in the meantime, I will see you in the next video.